Midnight Road. Chapter 1. August, 1986. On the evening of August 8th, when Billy Hudson sped into the sheriff's office in his cherry red Firebird, the prized Cadillac driven by Sheriff Andrew Lutz was narrowly avoided being side-swiped. Sheriff Lutz looked up from the old magazine he was mindlessly flipping through at the sound of tires screaming. In a single, smooth motion, he left his desk and crossed half of the station as he watched Billy's Pontiac's fender approach the driver's side door of his caddy. Looking at his scratched metal watch, Lutz wondered what the hell Billy was thinking. Lutz immediately assumed that the young man had been drinking because it was only a few minutes into the morning on a Saturday. What sort of drunk driver drives himself voluntarily into police custody? Billy Hudson stumbled out of the driver's side door, fell to his knees, and then stumbled back to his feet before the Firebird's wheels had come to a complete stop. "They are no more!" As he scrambled for equilibrium, Billy cried out of breath. "I believe all of the McGuires are dead." Lutz's mouth was already open to reprimand Billy for almost slamming the door of his Cadillac, but when Billy said those words, his jaws clicked shut. Lutz observed the situation in front of him. After Sheriff Bradley retired in 1975, he served as Richmond County Sheriff for more than 10 years, winning re-election twice. He spent most of his time on the highways in the 40,000-person county, which is 400 square miles in size, and was familiar with Billy Hudson and his gang of gearheads. Billy was a courteous child who always showed respect, but that wasn't always the case with the town's youth. The teenage males in the area were completely enamored with their automobiles, and they were frequently seen late at night drinking, drag racing, and having a wild time on one lonely country road or another. They weren't particularly horrible kids, there just wasn't much else to do in a place where maize and soybean fields predominated. Once they got too unruly and started blaring the speakers on their stereos loud enough to wake the long-suffering farmers in the neighborhood, Lutz or one of his deputies would have to go out and disperse the gathering, which would happen at least once a month. Lutz believed he understood what might have happened, his heart sinking. "Which of you struck them? What location was the accident?" "Sheriff, no one hit them." Billy firmly shook his head as he went for the walkie-talkie at his hip. "Tonight we weren't racing. The fact that Stu Lennox damaged his father's brand new Ford and—" "Get to the point, Billy." Lutz crowed. Saying sorry, sir. Billy had to take a deep breath before continuing since he had started speaking so quickly that his words were tripping over one another as they raced to come out. "Sheriff, there was no racing tonight. Molly Green, who resides in Oakville, and I were out. I drove her home after we had gone to the drive-in. I chose to travel the former Highway 99 on the way back because I wanted to. I enjoy how quiet it is outside at night. I wanted to disturb the peace by revving up the Pontiac away from the troopers on the state highway is more like it." Sheriff Lutz thought but didn't voice aloud. "Anyway, I was at the McGuire property, you know that large wooded area next to the farm? As I was traveling there, I believed I saw something cross the street. Similar to a large, shadowy bear. Frightened the hell out of me. I almost lost control of the vehicle." "There aren't any bears around here, son," the sheriff replied skeptically. "Sure it wasn't a deer?" "Sir, it wasn't any darn deer. It moved like a cat but had a bear's hump and slope. It was the first deer I had ever seen, but I only saw it for a split second. Its height was greater than my car's roof." "What nonsense was this?" Lutz ran a hand through his dark, thinning hair and looked down. It was then that he noticed the blood spattering Billy's dusty work boots and the hems of his jeans. Lutz took a hesitant step backward, moving his right hand ever so slightly toward the handgun holstered at his hip. He started inspecting the red Pontiac for dings and scratches, thinking the animal narrative was nothing more than a ruse. He cautiously circled back to the young man after searching for none, keeping a 10-foot distance. "All right, Billy. Before we start to run into trouble, you have approximately 12 seconds to start making sense. Why do you claim that the McGuires are no longer alive? Whose blood, kid, is that on your shoes? Sheriff, I was attempting to explain. As I was traveling down the old Highway 99, I noticed a large, menacing creature crossing the street. I'm not sure, sir, I'll be really honest, but it frightened me so much that I was on the verge of falling. Whatever it was had vanished into that area of forest close to the McGuire plot when I finally managed to stop the car on the shoulder and turn around. I came to the same conclusion as you, sir. Thought I was just seeing things late at night, Billy continued. But then I noticed some sort of liquid on the road in my headlights. Like oil, but when I took another look, it wasn't oil. Blood was seen. Is it possible this animal or whatever you saw could have been wounded? The sheriff asked. The moment I got out of the car and reached into the trunk for my Winchester gun, I said, that's the first thing I thought, too, Sheriff. I reasoned that I could at least end the suffering of the poor creature. But when I went closer to the blood on the road, when I got closer, Billy began to stutter, and it appeared as though all the strength in his legs had failed. His oil-stained blue pants slipped into the plush grass of the station's yard as he almost gracefully knelt down. Out with it, son. What did you see? Lutz asked. He was trying to be patient, but it was also imperative that they get to the scene of any crime as fast as possible. Billy inhaled deeply while trembling. An arm, please. A woman's arm was on the side of the road, barely past my headlamp. The elbow was severed. It still wore a wedding band. It was still wearing. At this point, Billy was trembling so violently that the sheriff feared he might be about to experience a seizure. He took a minute to glance around, perplexed by the sudden turn of events that had previously been his tranquil evening. He then crouched down close to the young man who was shaking on his haunches. Lutz habitually inhaled the air near Billy Hudson's head, almost hoping to catch a fragrance of booze like whiskey or gin. However, nothing was there. Lutz made a U-turn and headed back toward the sheriff's office. He shouted Clarkson for his senior deputy. Soon after, Henry Clarkson emerged from his cramped office and asked, "Sheriff?" Thank glad Clarkson was in charge tonight. Clarkson was a cool-headed cop who performed well under pressure. Henry Clarkson, the sole African-American on the police, had a commanding voice and a barrel chest that he could use to great effect on rowdy suspects. However, he also had a rational mind that ran over every scenario in his head before acting. Lutz prayed again, this time in relief that it wasn't Miller, his younger, jitterier deputy, who was sharing the station tonight. Is the cruiser full of gas? Good. Get the shotgun and the rifle, and also some flashlights. Highway 99 is our destination because something might have happened at Bud McGuire's house. The fact that Clarkson obeyed directions without questioning him endlessly was an added bonus. Following a brief nod, the deputy turned to carry out the request. Back outside, Lutz knelt down next to Billy Hudson, who was still hunched over on the grass with his head in his hands. Lutz yearned for a smoke because his tongue tasted bitter. Billy, it's all right. Son, good work. It's all right. Andrew Lutz repeated the mantra, just breathe again and over, recalling how his father had used a similar approach to calm tense horses. The stiff strain along Billy Hudson's back softened, and after a few minutes his breathing started to calm. Billy inhaled slowly for a further 1 or 2 breaths before turning to face the sheriff. He added with deadly determination, after I found the arm, I proceeded into the home. Sir, I can't describe it. However, something terrible occurred there. If it's acceptable, I'd like to go right now and go home. Billy Hudson deserved to be told by Sheriff Lutz that he could return home, take a hot shower, and enjoy a stiff drink, but it was not to be. Billy, I'm sorry. please point out the precise location of where all of this occurred? We'll drive right by it in the dark as there are no lights there." Billy's face appeared to be fighting back tears for a moment, but his mouth clenched, and all he could muster was a helpless nod. While the two senior men went to check on the McGuires, Lutz contacted his junior deputy at home, waking him from a sound sleep and ordering him to haul his ass over and man the station. Then the three of them piled into the sheriff's cruiser and headed north to Highway 99. Stay tuned for Chapter 2. Thank you for listening.